I'm the historian for TPAS, and it's my pleasure to do this presentation. It's pretty much a ride through history, so it's not pretty all the time, so buckle up and here we go. Physician assistants, the past, the present, the future, a Black history-related career. In the past, in the 1930s, the orderly help were also known as the Negro help of that day. It was common for physicians to work with the orderly help, performing many clinical tasks to assist the busy family practice setting in southern rural states. Dr. Amos Johnson was a family practice. He once had a large practice in the South, and his system was rather unique, effective, and appropriate at the time for the numbers of people that he cared for. So I want you to close your eyes. We're 1930s, you don't have many hospitals, especially down south in a rural area, and you have your whole family. So you go to the doctor pretty much as a field trip. You go, everyone gets evaluated, walk into the office, someone comes in and greets you, takes you to your own room, the doctor comes in and sees you and walks out. You stay, you don't get any information yet, but you know that you're gonna get some information later. About 2 hours later, 2 to 3 hours later, you come back and they tell you to sit in a big room similar to this, and all your business is told. Mr. Johnson, hello, how's your wife doing? Great. Okay, so about that drip you had, yeah, we're going to call in something for you. Actually, the pharmacist is on the line. Hey, Bill, all right, I got Mr. Johnson here. Yeah, you know Johnson, yeah, he's here. We're gonna give him this particular antibiotics, and that's that. All right, next, Miss Anderson. Hey, Miss Anderson, all right, so we're in a whole room in a circle, and there is no HIPAA at all. Okay, there was no privacy situation. You go, open your eyes now, guys. There was no privacy situation, no law or act or at all. You basically got your business told. But it was functional. Why? Because there was so many patients at one period, and it was the most effective way of doing it. The pharmacist, you did have a script. The pharmacist already had the prescriptions ready to be picked up because he was on the phone during the massive display of medical information. All right. So that was the story of the communal medicine prior to HIPAA in the 30s in the South of rural America. So what was going on here? 1930s, UMES was definitely here, and it looked like this. This campus was famous for its ROTC program. It's 125 years old now, but back then it wasn't. It was it still is a very huge program here. So that's kind of what the campus was at this time. So we're going through history. Who is Buddy Treadwell? Henry Buddy Treadwell, also known as Buddy. In 1940, Dr. Johnson hired a recent high school graduate who was the son of his housekeeper. So he was very familiar with this kid. He watched him grow up, and he was close to him. The little boy said one day, Dr. Johnson, one day I'm gonna grow up and work in your clinic. In the 1930s and 40s, it wasn't really a popular thing, but he said, okay, son, good job. He was hired as a babysitter for the patients during this group consultation. So the kids running around, he needs somebody to watch, great teenager. This is your job. Watch the kids while I do this. So he did it. He got his job in the clinic. But he went from babysitting to transporting patients and minor clerical work in less than a year. By the second year, Dr. Johnson realized he had a smart guy here, but he wasn't a fool. Taught Buddy how to do vitals and labs and x-rays, and ended up being a really good assistant even at his young age. So the first physician assistant was Buddy. By the time Buddy was 20 years of age, he had gained the trust and respect of Dr. Johnson to perform all of the vitals, labs, x-rays, sutures, and small minor surgeries, both on Black and white patients alike. Although PA Buddy couldn't walk in the same doors as his white patients did, all the patients trusted him to take care of not only themselves, but their kids and their parents. He couldn't use the same bathroom or drink the water from the same water fountains, but he was the preferred clinician of even the wealthiest patients. And that's him treating one of the patients with Dr. Johnson on the left. The first physician with a PA was Dr. Johnson. A common practice of using Negro help without acknowledgement became official because Dr. Amos Johnson took a stand for what was right. He fought for the right to formally educate and train supportive, underprivileged staff, also the non-physicians or less educated workers, who at that time were known as the orderly or the Negro help. The cost to see the PA Buddy was half the cost of Dr. Johnson in the 1930s. That's big. Okay, half the cost to see a doctor, to see Buddy, pretty cool. The PA's question. So he also, Dr. Johnson was he was the director of American Academy of Family Practice. He was a big time doctor, and he realized that although the demands of his practice was huge. He realized that he was still an influential practitioner, medical advisor for the country. So he actually needed to go to conferences and learn about new medicine and things like that. So it was a conflict. He couldn't do both. You can't be at the conferences and see 50 patients a day. So what did he do? He left his office to Buddy. And oftentimes people would say, well, Dr. Johnson, you know, you're always out and here doing this. Who's taking care of your patients? And he would say, oh, my buddy. And they was like, the buddy's a Negro. They said, it doesn't matter. Okay. So in 1960, Duke University's Dr. Sneed took interest in this special family practice that crosses racial boundaries, but also was making medical care history as the first MD-PA practice prototype. So this was something that was new then, but it was working and it was effective and it was solving more problems than causing. He contacted Dr. Johnson and PA Buddy, and in 5 years developed the first former PA curriculum, starting its class in 1965. And those were the first classmates of the PA program at Duke in 1967. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions throughout the program, throughout this presentation. My first Black History question is, this was an orderly Negro field or trade certificate program, right? We just talked about the history. Dr. Johnson and Henry Buddy Treadwell was the prototype for the concept, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. So how is this class 100% non-Negro? The answer, segregation was real serious then. It wasn't a joke. We couldn't even go to the same school. We wouldn't be in this classroom like this at all. So that was why. And the problem was Black people weren't educated enough to get to any level near a program at Duke University. And it was a real serious racial warfare going on in the country at the time. So the Duke's class in 1970 looked like this. So the big class at the medical school. And those are the three young men who were a part of the class of 67. Yeah. So what was going on here in the 70s? They was partying on this campus. 1960s and 70s with HBCU. It went down. They was jamming to James Brown and everything else. They was doing the bump. They was, you know, like I picture them. And they had them from. Okay? All right. So Duke rights his wrongs. How? The first PA class to graduate an African American student was in 1970. A woman who was already a licensed nurse, LPN. She applied for the program, got accepted, and she was the first African American to get a PA degree in the country. During that graduation in 1970, they also issued an honorary PA degree to Henry Buddy Treadwell. At the same time, they issued their first African American PA student degree as well. So what the story with Buddy is, Dr. Johnson and him practiced for about 30 years. And Dr. Johnson actually got sick and retired and left the practice to Buddy. And Buddy ended up deciding to retire and not to continue because of the, we don't have to say why. It would have been an uphill battle for him. So what he did was he ended up closing up the office and opening a bakery. And that's a certificate. That's the actual picture that you see most of the time with him examining what are they examining? We're told not to do it at the same time though, right? All right. So what is the reason for HBCU? My second question of Black History Month. What is a historically Black college university? Can I get somebody to tell me? We know it stands for that's what HBCU stands for, but what exactly is it? Anybody? Anybody?
Just a college that's just strictly for the Black community.
Okay, so go ahead.
It was the only place that Blacks could actually go and receive the education.
Okay. So it was a fair place where we could go and not deal with what was going on in the rest of the country. So it was critical, and oftentimes that was the only choice that we had. So even still now, although we have other choices, a lot of people prefer to still go to HBCU because of the warm and caring environment that nurtures particular students. So here we have several different HBCUs represented in this class. So what is HBCU? It's a history and future of preparing activists and leaders. So it's dated back to the sit-ins where African American students were fed up. We were like, this is crazy. So we took it to the country and really addressed the racial issue head on. something called a sit-in, where you would go into places where they weren't supposed to serve black people, and they would just sit there. And oftentimes they weren't greeted too nicely, as you see on the left. Back to the PA story, and PA career grew from that small class of 3 in Duke in 1967. It became a basically military program, because at the time we were going through a lot of wars, and a lot of people were really, hurting. They didn't have enough doctors in the military to help all of these people who needed medical attention. So it really turned into be like a really program to save those that were those vets that were injured. So that's kind of where it turned from there. More and more schools that had existing medical training programs started PA schools. The first historically black college to have a physician assistant school was Charles Drew University School of Medicine, which is in California. It was also the first program in the state of California, and one of the oldest following Duke, so it's one of the oldest in the country as well. Howard was the second HBCU, and here, where you stand, is the third. My third Black History question. Who is this person? I'm gonna give you a hint. I just said his name. The last slide. Anybody?
Charles.
Very good. Anybody know what Charles Drew did, or what he's famous for? You're gonna learn today. He basically was responsible for the blood bank. We wouldn't be able to store blood. We wouldn't be able to transfuse. We wouldn't, all that cross match, all of that. That was his. So now you know what Charles Drew looked like. From nothing to a master's. In the 1960s, the PA degree was only offered as a certificate. Wasn't even a full degree. In the late 70s, the PA degree became available as an associate's degree. And as the years went on, it became a bachelor's. And in most schools, it stayed a bachelor's for a long time, a very long time. And it wasn't until 2013, it was made a 2 to 3 year master's degree, which is pretty much why most of us are here today. University of Maryland Eastern Shore is the only HBCU currently right now able to offer a master's degree program. This program was only established not too long ago. You are Black History as a student attending this program today. The last Black History fact. What does UGRR mean? Anybody know?
Underground Railroad.
Anybody? It was in Hurlock.
Oh, underground.
You see it all the time.
Underground
Driving up and
Railroad.
down the street from here to DC, you see signs of it all throughout the transportation, or whatever, highways. I stands for, give you another hint.
She said it.
Okay, sorry. So the Underground Railroad. Anybody know anything about the Underground Railroad? Very tough. So the reason why I bring this up is because this is where it was. Out of any places in the country, like, we're pretty much on fertile ground because this is where the Underground Railroad was. Is it a real railroad underground in a tunnel? No, it's not. But what it was at night, well, I'll just leave. I'll let them talk. Then after this, we're done. So I'm gonna just kind of go to the internet real quick, if possible, sorry. Sorry, this was supposed to be seamless, but and in 5 minutes, we'll be done. How do you make it so that
Sarah.
She don't.
I'm like, you know? No.